Welcome back, Democrats. Yay. And friendly unaffiliateds. I'm Vicki Shea. I'm the chair of the Farrington Democratic Club. We are live, very alive in the gathering place and also on Zoom. And we are ready to elect Democrats. Just a few quick reminders. Please turn off your cell phones. And during the question and answer, if you're watching on Zoom, if you will type your question into the chat, it will be read aloud so that everybody can hear it here. And if you're in the room, please wait for the microphone so that everyone can hear comfortably. We think we're speaking loudly and we're not, or we think we're hearing well and we're definitely not. So just wait for the microphone, please. So on your seats, you have a sample ballot for our precinct, fresh from the Board of Elections website. As you probably have heard, the Democratic Party in North Carolina has had to reprint sample ballots, the ones that you get that have all the candidates marked. But you will have them as usual, what we call the sample ballot. It's on white paper now, but it used to be called the blue ballot. But when you go to vote, you will be handed one. But these also, the party of all of the candidates is marked. So you can look at this and tell who the Democrats are. And on your seat, you have this handy dandy trifold that will take you, if you open it, you have all the Democratic candidates that are going to be on the ballot. Okay. And then this first one has all of the early voting sites and their addresses and the times that they're all open. Early voting starts on the 17th. I'm going to make my usual plea, which is if you can wait until the 20th and vote on a Sunday. It's been difficult to get Sunday voting approved in this county, but we have it now. And the more people who vote on Sunday, the more it's going to be clear that there's public support for that. So the first Sunday is the 20th and the other Sunday is the 27th. You will notice that the candidates do say still Biden-Harris. We're putting stickers on these and we've ordered new ones, or the party has ordered new ones, but we figured you all could figure it out that it, so, okay. And then on the back, it has the dates of when early voting starts and when it ends and when election day is. Okay, so that's one set of, yes. Yes.
I went through my first day's training as an election judge today, and they handed us out the map of early voting sites, and Farrington is on it. Yeah. So there might be a conflict. Election day. Election day. No. Yeah.
We vote here on election day, but not during early voting. But this, for people who live in this precinct, if they wait to vote until election day, they vote in this room. Yes. Okay, wait. Please
vote early. Do not become part of the line that is going to sweep around this building on election day.
Okay, I'm going to get the microphone back now. On the table, we're going to put out on the table some other pieces of information. We didn't bring enough, and we didn't think we needed enough for you to see everybody's picture, you know, all the Democrats and that, but it will be out there. And there is going to be a nonpartisan candidate forum in Chatham County at the Ag Center Thursday, 2 nights from now. Many, all the candidates have been invited, not the presidential level, but all the way down from that. And many have accepted. It is nonpartisan, but it's mainly the Democrats who are going to be there. So a lot of the important Democratic candidates that you haven't been able to actually talk to or hear from are going to be there. So that's going to be great. It's free. It's at 6 o'clock at the Ag Center. And refreshments at 5:30 and Spanish translation, interpretation, if you want that. Okay, and one more thing. Great Decisions on Thursday, October 10th is going to be, the speaker is going to be our former Congressman David Price. Right, so that'll be advertised in Farrington and Galloway and the usual mechanisms. Okay, now for the main event. The Farrington Democratic Club has always had good speakers, but this is a great speaker. Natasha Marcus is currently a state senator and she's running for North Carolina Insurance Commissioner. She has a lot to say about what an insurance commissioner can do, should do, and unfortunately has been doing. She's a lawyer, a public servant, a champion of integrity in government, and a ferocious advocate for people over corporations. Please welcome Senator Natasha Marcus.
Thank you for that nice introduction. I appreciate how many folks are here tonight. I understand there are more than one competing events even, and you all picked to come here. So thank you for that. I hope that it will be worth your time and that you learn something. And when you do learn something, I hope that you will help me by sharing with a neighbor, any other North Carolina voter who you have contact with, because I bet you anything what you learned tonight will be not only new to you, but new to them. And that will help me a lot. So thank you for being here. Josh and I are here. This is my campaign manager over here. Josh taking pictures. Wave to Josh. I thought it was really welcoming to enter your beautiful winding roads with the white picket fences. And what did we see to our left as we drove in? A donkey. Oh, perfect. This is our place. Say, hey, Josh, look, there's a donkey to welcome us here. It was fantastic. I also noticed as I was introducing myself, and y'all have my paper in your hand there, I'm just going to go ahead and admit the embarrassing fact that I am wearing the identical outfit that is on that picture. Same blouse, same scarf, everything. So, you know, it's really me, right? So I'm Natasha Marcus, and I am here to talk to you tonight about what I like to call the sexiest race on the ballot. It's the one everybody's talking about, can't stop the buzz about, and people are racing, can't wait to race to the polls, vote early and make their choice in the very exciting race of Commissioner of Insurance, right? I say it that way because I often, as I go to groups like this and others, I'll come up to people and I'll say, well, hello, I'm Natasha Marcus. I'm running for Commissioner of Insurance. And people will give me a look, kind of a funny look. And they say, what is that? Or do we even vote on that? And so I want to start from there and explain, yes, we do vote on this and why, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the job duties. So it is important, I think, for you to know as North Carolina voters that we are one of only 11 states in the nation where the voters choose who the Commissioner of Insurance is. So in most states, you wouldn't have a choice at all about who your advocate was when it came to matters related to insurance. It would be appointed, and that's all there was to it. But here we get to pick. And so I think we should take that responsibility seriously and give some thought. And I hope you will, and I hope other voters will give some thought to who we want in this role. So there's a lot of jobs that the Commissioner of Insurance does. It is a job that is sometimes called the Department of Everything Else. I talk with Wayne Goodwin on a weekly basis. Who remembers Wayne Goodwin, who was our previous Commissioner of Insurance? Yeah, good man, a good Democrat who understood what the job is supposed to be, that when the people elect our Commissioner of Insurance, that means that we're choosing that single person who we will trust to stand up for us, the voters. And there is a lot of power in this one position. We only get to pick this person once every 4 years. It's a 4-year term. And the Commissioner of Insurance is the single person. It is not a commission like a Public Utilities Commission, the group that sets the rates on how much you have to pay for electricity. No. It's a single Commissioner of Insurance who has sole authority to set the maximum rate that insurance companies can charge all of us for homeowners, auto insurance, workers' comp, and more. So raise your hand if you pay an insurance bill in North Carolina. Raise your other hand if you pay more than one bill in North Carolina, an insurance bill. So if your hand's in the air, you should care who your commissioner of insurance is, because more than any other race on the ballot, it directly impacts your wallet. You have to have these forms of insurance, and that's why it's a regulated market. Every state in the nation regulates their insurance costs. Some do it better than others, and we'll talk about it. So we've got, for 8 years in this role, so 2 4-year terms, a man named Mike Causey, the first Republican to ever be elected commissioner of insurance in our state. Who knows Mike Causey's nickname? I heard it in the back. I know I've met some of you before. Rate Hike Mike. Rate Hike Mike. I didn't give him that nickname. He earned it by approving 16 rate hikes in a row. Every single time the insurance companies have requested a rate hike, he has agreed. 16 times. He's never once said no. And even worse, he has never held a public hearing. So the North Carolina law gives the commissioner of insurance, because there's so much authority in this one person, the authority to hold public hearings on rate hike requests. So this is how it's supposed to work. There's a group called the Rate Bureau in North Carolina, and they are not a governmental agency. They represent the insurance companies. Their job, to make maximum profits for insurance companies. They don't care about you and if it's too much or anything else. They want to make maximum profits for insurance companies. That's their job, and they're doing it really, really well in North Carolina. On the other side is the commissioner of insurance, the single person backed up by the entire Department of Insurance, lots of staff that he has, actuaries and experts. And he is supposed to have a bit of an adversarial relationship with the Rate Bureau. So they say, we would like yet another rate hike. We would like to raise our rates another. In the case right now, they're requesting a 45.2% statewide increase in your homeowner's insurance. That's presently before Mike Causey. So his job is supposed to be to say, well, wait a minute, prove it. Prove that you have the data to back up a need to raise your rates. And let me be clear, insurance companies are permitted to make a reasonable profit. We actually want them to, right? Because if they can't make a reasonable profit, they're not going to write policies here. And we don't want to turn into Florida, where they've all pulled out and said, forget it, we're out, right? And that's a complicated situation that is very different than what we have here. Part of it is because their state is sinking into the ocean and they have terrible right-wing people in charge who refuse to even acknowledge climate change, right? But North Carolina's system of regulation is very different. And so they're supposed to be able to make a reasonable profit, yes, because we want them to do business, but not however much profit they want. Not record profits. And that's what they've been making in North Carolina. How do we know this? Because there is all the data available nationwide from a group called AM Best. The New York Times dug into this and did a fantastic series of reports. If you haven't read it, I urge you to go back. If you're a New York Times subscriber, it was back in March or so. Compared state to state, where are the insurance companies making money? Where are they losing money? On homeowners, which, by the way, is the one type of policy that the insurance companies always cry and say, oh, we're going to lose money. There's too many claims and we can't make any money and we might pull out of the market. Okay, so New York Times, AM Best together looked it up, compared all the states. For every state, they looked at the last decade. In the last 9 of the last 10 years, they have made on homeowners insurance major profits in North Carolina. One year they didn't because we had 3 big storms all hit at once. Compare that to states elsewhere, like Iowa, interestingly, an interior state, not one that's getting hit by hurricanes. They're losing money in Iowa almost every year. So what does that tell you? They're making massive profits, charging us more here to make up for their losses in other states like Iowa. That's exactly what the North Carolina elected commissioner of insurance is supposed to protect us from. That's his job. And because he's never held a single public hearing, you don't know that, and he doesn't have to have that data made publicly. And that's a problem. Insurance companies love Mike Causey. They don't want to have to tell you what their profits are and what their top executives make in salaries. They don't want to have that public hearing and have that out there for everyone to see. They want to just make threats about, well, we might pull out or we need more money or blah, blah, blah. And they love people like Mike Causey who are just going to agree. So what he does is he's never held a public hearing. He always says there will be one. Right now, he said there's going to be one on this one on October 7th. But this is what he always does. Every single time he cancels the hearing, usually close in time to when it's supposed to happen. Instead, he meets privately. Here's where it gets sexy. He meets privately with these people. No reporters in the room, no record of what they talked about. We don't know how many wink winks are exchanged. They come out of that meeting and he essentially announces, well, folks, your rates are going up again, but believe me, I made you a good deal because I'm a master negotiator and it's less than what they asked for. So you're welcome. And you don't have to understand the details, honey. Just believe me. What? That's not how it's supposed to work. And of course they didn't get what they asked for. That's negotiation 101. You don't go into the negotiation asking for a reasonable number. You go in asking for the moon, right? So when Mike Causey negotiates them down to some new number and expects applause out of this, I say, no, 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 no. Where is the public hearing? Where's the transparency? Do your job, hold the hearing like Wayne Goodwin did. And before him, Jim Long. Anybody been around long enough to remember Jim Long when he was commissioner of insurance? He goes way back. So without these public hearings, honestly, he shouldn't be approving any rate hike because what's the new number? What does the data even show as a reasonable new number for them to make a reasonable profit? We don't know because he won't tell us. And then we layer on top of that the fact that he has already accepted over $250,000 in campaign contributions from insurance industry sources. So you see what's happening here. They spend a lot of money to put him in the job. In return, he lets them make maximum profits, they don't have to present any data in a hearing. You all don't know what's happening because it's not making headlines. And they keep raking in massive profits while we all get squeezed. Did you know that in North Carolina, most households spend about as much on insurance as they do on food? It's that big of an expense now. So that's a problem. He's a terrible commissioner of insurance. And in addition to not doing his job well and not being trustworthy because he has a major conflict of interest. I like to think about it this way. When I practiced law, I did litigation. If I took money from one side, but said I was representing the other side, I would have been disbarred. What Mike Causey, rate hike Mike, is doing is technically legal. Let me be clear, because all he's required under law to do is disclose who his donors are, and that's supposed to be enough of a check on his loyalties. But who checks his, who check? You didn't know, right? You didn't know. Nobody knows this. So that's part of my job in getting that word out there about who he's really working for. I, by the way, made a pledge on day one to take no money from insurance companies, their top executives. I don't want the conflict of interest. I want to work for the people of North Carolina. So that's why I think he does a terrible job. There's some other ways in which, since I'm here, I'm going to mention one of the jobs is to regulate CCRCs. So I understand there is one here in our vicinity, Galloway. Did I say it right? Galloway? Okay. And so one of the jobs is to make sure it is considered to be like an insurance policy, in that you pay in an awful lot of money as an initial investment, right? For the right to be able to rely on a place to live that's going to take care of you in your later years. Often people plan to stay there till they die, right? And so it's a huge investment, and that the state of North Carolina believes that someone ought to be regulating those CCRCs and looking out again for the people. And again, do we trust a guy like Mike Causey? I would say no. We had a situation I live in Davidson. Does anyone familiar with Davidson College? That's where I live. Okay. It's near the Pines at Davidson, well managed, lovely place to live. It's also unfortunately near Aldersgate, which is another CCRC you may have read about in the paper. That's the nightmare scenario that almost happened. Almost all those residents lost all their money because I believe Mike Causey delayed too long in intervening. They're supposed to file reports. They're supposed to be subject to review. And I'm not the commissioner of insurance, so I can't get in and dig into those details of what went wrong. But what we do know is they came this close to filing bankruptcy. And there's still some questions. There was actually some new stuff popping up this week that we're worried about that. So that's a part of the job. And then so we know he's not doing his job well in various ways, and that his loyalty is questionable. But then on top of that, have you read in the paper about how many times he has been caught? Here's where it gets sexy again. In scandal after scandal, and who he's hiring and who he's paying with state money. So no other council of state member except the governor has a private driver except Mike Causey, who happens to be his longtime friend. They've been friends for 40 years. This guy picks him up at his house in Greensboro every morning and drives him to Raleigh, where the office is, and back every day. And they go on these extended road trips to as far away as New Mexico and Utah, where there is no state business going on. He still has not answered why they visited this small town in New Mexico multiple times, and we're all paying for it. Their hotels, their mileage, their expenses, their meals. And this guy gets paid a base salary of $84,000 a year. Mike Causey calls him a deputy commissioner. He's his chauffeur, his buddy, who they take road trips together. That's one of them. And then there's another friend of his who helped him get elected. So after the election, Mike Causey created a job that never existed before near the beach where this guy lived or wanted to live, and paid him six-figure salary for 2 or 3 years before the media finally caught on to this and asked the guy, "What is it you do for the Department of Insurance, sir, for your six-figure salary?" And he just right away admitted, well, it was kind of a make-work job. I didn't really have to do anything. 6 figures for multiple years. And then he's closed down regional offices that are supposed to be there. A big part of the job is consumer protection, educating people about what your options are for insurance, what to do if your insurance company is denying your claim and refusing to pay, or talking legal mumbo jumbo, and you don't understand what your rights are. That's a big part of the job. And that department under Mike Causey has shrunk. And the regional offices that were there for people to walk into, sometimes I know in my case, my parents are getting older, and my sister and I always worry about it. What happens if mom or dad dies? Are all their papers in order? What happens? A lot of times you find a shoebox full of insurance related papers, and you want to know that you can go into an office and bring those papers and say, "Can you help me figure out what kind of insurance coverage my parents had?" That's what the regional offices are for. He's closed down many of the most used regional offices and moved them to random rural small towns miles and miles away, a lot less accessible. Why? Because that's where his friend lived, who he put in charge of running the office, even though that friend had no experience running, knows nothing about insurance. So time and time again, using his position of power for plum jobs that are paid with state money. He's not a trustworthy guy. He is not in this for the people of North Carolina. So that's him. Let me tell you a little bit about me. So in the fine introduction, you was mentioned, I'm a state senator. I have served for 6 years. So that's 3 terms from my district, Davidson, where I live. That's in Mecklenburg County. And I have been a strong advocate for the values that I expect we all share here as Democrats. I've been the leading voice in the North Carolina Senate to protect reproductive freedom. The toughest day I ever had in the legislature. was the day that I gave my most impassioned speech on the floor of the Senate. I looked in the eyes of the Republican, mostly older white men who were passing that abortion ban. And I talked to them about my Republican father and how he would never vote for this ban because he knew it would end up killing women and making us second-class citizens. And I just needed one of them to listen to me and take seriously what I was trying to say to them. Just one of them. If they'd voted with us, we could have stopped that. As you know now, they were not persuaded. They passed that ban. That was the one day I cried in this job. It's the first time I've ever felt like my government took my rights away. It hit hard. I've also always fought hard for public education. I am the proud daughter and granddaughter of teachers. And now the proud mom of a teacher. My youngest is starting her 3rd year teaching 2nd grade. So I will always fight for better public education and better teacher pay because I think teachers are professionals. And if we aren't investing in our kids, then what the heck are we doing, right? And then one of the, so I serve on the Judiciary Committee, which you might guess, given my law background, the Insurance and Commerce Committee, so related to this job, and several others, Education Committee, but one that was very interesting, or has been very interesting, is the Elections and Redistricting Committee. And my job there was to point out time and time again, every cycle, how they use their power to carve up our state into undemocratic, gerrymandered, rigged maps. They did it over and over. It's so blatant. It's so obvious, right? And we were saved multiple times by the courts. But in this last round of redistricting, they saw their chance to get rid of Natasha Marcus. They don't like people who poke the bear and who ask tough questions and shame them for what they're doing. And so what they did is draw a line right through my precinct. You're not supposed to split a precinct in half, but that's what they did. They knew where my house was, split the precinct, made sure my house was on the wrong side of that line, and pushed my half of my town up with the neighboring county to the north, which is a very, very red county, Iredell County. It was their way of saying goodbye, Natasha Marcus. We just as soon you not be here anymore. So they decided, not the voters, they decided that I don't get to stay in the Senate. And it's okay. I was mad, but it's okay. I wear it as a badge of honor because I think, you know, if I was that much of a threat to you that you had to do something unconstitutional in order to get rid of me, then fine, so be it. So now I am running statewide. Part of the reason I'm running is that the Josh Stein campaign reached out to me and said, hey, Natasha, we know you can't stay in the Senate. We're sorry about that because you've been great, but we hope that you will pivot and think about this job because we have a terrible commissioner of insurance right now in Mike Causey. We know he's vulnerable because he keeps raising the rates. Everyone talks about it. And I have seen that play out everywhere I go. People say my insurance bill just went up $400. I never even made a claim. What the heck is going on? And I'll talk about why that is in a minute. Consent to rate. We got to talk about that real quick. And so the Stein campaign, he's looking more and more like he's definitely going to be the next governor, right? Like it's looking really good. Yes. And so we need for him to win for sure, but he needs more Democrats on the Council of State because one of the tricky things the legislature has done, again, I think unconstitutionally, is give the Council of State the ability to have a majority vote that overrides the governor's executive orders. So remember during COVID, we put a lot of faith in Governor Roy Cooper, who did a fantastic job in making some pretty big, tough decisions. And our state fared better than many, many other states did as far as not losing as many jobs, not having as many people die. And that was because he had the authority to issue executive orders and he used it carefully and he did it right. Now they've changed things like that. So now it will be up to a majority vote of the Council of State. So people like the Commissioner of Insurance, Commissioner of Agriculture, et cetera, will be able to outvote the governor on some pretty important things. So we need more Democrats on the Council of State. So that's another one of the reasons I'm running. But really, it goes back to, for me, I've always done what I believe is best for the people of North Carolina. I've been doing this job. Does anyone know what a state senator gets paid? Do you know what my salary is? I love to play this game. Josh can't answer. He knows. It's $13,800. That's my salary. So you know I've not been doing this for the money, folks. It's because I care, and I get so mad when I see people run for office, supposed to be representing people, and then do the opposite. So I hope you'll help me spread the word. One of the things I'm already doing, even though I am not the current commissioner of insurance, is trying to educate people about something that I think is a travesty that's happening in North Carolina more than in any other state. It's called consent to rate. Raise your hand if you've ever even heard this phrase. There's one person in here who worked in insurance, told me they did. Okay, just a couple people. So let me tell you this real quick because it might save you hundreds of dollars. So in North Carolina, the General Assembly allowed several decades ago a loophole to the normal rule. So I've been talking to you about how the commissioner of insurance sets the maximum rate and he keeps letting it go up, 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 right? That's the maximum rate allowed in North Carolina for homeowners, auto, etc. But the General Assembly created a loophole called consent to rate. And it was originally designed to say, sometimes there's going to be hard to insure properties or vehicles. Think antique car or house on a cliff or something. And you're not going to be able to get insurance for a normal rate. So in that case, if you get the consumer's consent in writing that they're agreeing, you can charge them up to 250% of the max. Okay. So it made sense to have it be in rare circumstances, okay. But the year that Causey got elected, he worked with the legislature, bragged about it, and said that he had created more freedom and flexibility for insurance companies. And they have now opened this consent to rate loophole up to all they have to do is put a notification in your bill somewhere. It has to be in all caps, but it's usually about page 8 on the back. And it has language that says, by paying the premium that we are charging in this bill, you are consenting to pay more than the maximum allowed under North Carolina law. If you pay it, you've consented. And they can charge you 250% of the supposed max. So Mike Causey, he was just on, by the way, we're going to be on PBS. Anybody watch PBS State Lines? Okay, it's Thursday night, 7 o'clock. Tune in. You'll see me. You'll see Mike Causey's interview. Listen to what he says there, and he said it other places about this loophole. He talks about it as freedom and flexibility for insurance companies. He thinks it's a good thing. And it is ballooned under Mike Causey. So now, instead of being the rare exception for an unusually difficult property to insure, it is almost the norm. And our research shows that about 45% of policyholders for auto and homeowners in our state are paying a consent to rate. So chances are high that it's in your bill, and you probably didn't read that far, right? Who does? And if you asked your insurance agent, why did it go up? Some of them will tell you the truth. Well, they're using consent to rate, and the commissioner of insurance raised the rates again. Two-part answer is the honest answer, but most won't. They'll say something vague like, well, the state allowed the rate hike or something vague like that. But really, it's this massive loophole called consent to rate. So we are doing our best to get the word out about that. And by the way, if that happened to you, what you should do, all you can do as a consumer is find an independent agent who will shop around for a different company for you that won't charge you a consent to rate and will only charge you the max. It's pretty sad we're looking for a place that will only charge you the maximum amount. But I've talked about this in several groups where I've gone everywhere from the coast to the mountains, and people call me afterwards and say, hey, you saved me $600. I got a better policy, less money. I had no idea that was in there. So check that out. So this is just one example of why I think Mike Causey, again, is a terrible commissioner of insurance, because one, he never talks about consent to rate. He's not going to explain it to people. And two, he defends it as freedom and flexibility for insurance companies to make massive profits, basically. And three, they love him for it, right? This is exactly why they want him to continue to be commissioner of insurance, so they can keep raking in massive profits. So that's consent to rate. These are difficult issues to explain in a 30-second ad, right? Raise your hand if you learned something tonight. Thank you. Please help us, because right now, the latest public poll shows that I am within 1 percentage point. I'm behind, but within 1 percentage point of the incumbent, Mike Causey. His name recognition is higher. He gets more of the Republicans to vote for him than I get the Democrats to vote for me. And there's a lot of undecideds. So we also have polling that shows when people hear about him and some of the things I've just told you, there's a huge swing and we win by as much as 20%. So there's a great potential here, but we are, how many days to election day? 40, 41, 40? It's going really fast. It's soon, folks. And we have not spent any money yet on ads. We're getting ready to hit him hard. And we believe this is going to swing our way, because you'll notice nothing I said tonight has anything to do with your party affiliation. This isn't a Democrat Republican thing. This is a who do you trust thing. This is who you're going to work for thing. And so I hope that you can talk to your neighbors, your Republican neighbors, and say, hey, has your insurance bill gone up a lot? Do you know why? Because most people don't know that there's an elected commissioner of insurance that's supposed to be protecting us from that. Causey will tell you when he's asked, he'll say, well, it's inflation. It's Biden's fault, inflation. But if you go to ratehikemike.com, this is our new website we rolled out. We're very proud of it. Josh did a lot of hard work on ratehikemike.com. You'll be able to look up by your county where you live, how much rates have gone up in your county under Mike Causey on homeowners insurance, how much faster that is than the rate of inflation. So that kills that argument. Plus, by the way, his rates were going up way before COVID ever hit and before inflation was even a factor in our economy. So that's just a made up reason. And it'll also tell you a lot more information about how many policies are subject to consent to rate in your county and how much the proposed new average hike is on homeowners pending right now. So we think that's some good information, which again, Mike Causey doesn't make this information available to you. I'm not even the commissioner of insurance yet, and I'm doing that. So I'm hoping you'll help me. One of the ways is Josh is starting this now. Please share your email with my campaign. All we need is your name, your zip, and your email. You don't have to read everything I send you, but they're interesting. And this is a sexy race now that you know about it, right? Now you agree with me. This is a very sexy race. Yeah. So you'll want to see our emails. Hopefully you'll read them and forward them to someone, because that's an easy way to share the information. Second, donate if you can. I already told you I'm not taking money from insurance companies. They write big checks. They write the big checks. I'm asking for you to send me $50 if you can. If that's too much, send me 15. If you could do a little more, send me more. We are the most frugal campaign of all the Council of State races. Josh is right over there. He is my only paid staffer, by the way, and the whole campaign is just me and Josh. And he is holding, we don't get any sleep. Those are the remit envelopes. So if you want to donate online on your phone, you can scan the QR code. You can take one of those lovely envelopes home and write a check and mail it to me. I hope you will donate. Every little bit helps. I love small dollar donations. That tells me you may not have a ton of money, but you care enough to help me win this race. And you're grateful that I came, and you're willing to chip in. And so please don't be shy. Whatever amount you can send, I hope you will. And then spread the word. I've already said that a few times, right? Because this is one of those races people don't know about. And they'll know about Mark Robinson and Josh Stein and Jeff Jackson, who's fantastic, by the way. But they may not know about Commissioner of Insurance. And so that's what I need your help with. And we're going to start running those ads with every penny we can raise. We're going to hit them. And we think we're going to win the race for Commissioner of Insurance. Hopefully I didn't go too long and I can answer some questions. No hard questions. Okay. Is it a hard question? Okay, good. All right.
Hi, Natasha. I just want to know who is supposed to have oversight over Mike Causey. Seems kind of weird.
So it is one of 10 Council of State positions. So if you have your sample ballot, you'll see here, I'm dead center on your ballot, by the way. I kind of like that placement. But all these 10 of us, so from governor, lieutenant governor, each of us is independently elected. And we make up the executive branch of our state government. So we don't work for the governor. There is no boss of the commissioner of insurance. It is the people's elected representative, chosen once every 4 years. So there's no, but exactly. So only the voters ultimately can hold him responsible. And that's why it's so frustrating that so few people know what he's been up to, because I don't think he would have gotten reelected after doing what he's been doing, but it's so hard to get the word out about it. So the law does not require that he hold public hearings, for example. He is empowered to do so and is expected to make sure the rates are reasonable and fair. So how else do you do that? I mean, every other commissioner understood you do the public hearings to set the rate, but he's not, there's no boss to him except us. And that's why he keeps getting away with it. Frustrating as that is, that's the answer.
On your sheet, you say you'd crack down on insurance fraud.
Mhm.
How big of a problem is that in North Carolina?
That's- yeah,
And
that-
what would you do?
That's an interesting question. So if you ask Mike Causey, that's his favorite topic. He loves to talk about what a tough guy he is on fraud. But as I've listened to him talk, I have a few questions. So he always cites the statistic that 30 cents of every dollar that you pay toward your premium goes to cover a fraudulent claim. He says 30 cents, so 30%. But the statewide or the nationwide data, the only data I've seen, says 10 cents of every dollar, which is still bad. And I'll talk about that in a second. So he's never cited where he gets his 30 cents from, but he clearly likes that number better for some reason. I think it's that it justifies, I told you he's really cut down and whittled down the staff at the Consumer Protection Division. He's loaded up staff of these, they're sworn law enforcement officers that work for the Department of Insurance. And they are allowed to investigate. They cannot prosecute. You have to pass it on to a DA or the Department of Justice, depending on what type of crime you uncover. But it is their job to investigate insurance fraud. And don't get me wrong, for the record, fraud is bad. Like, I'm not saying anything other than fraud is bad, and it does cost us some amount. I think it's 10 cents on every dollar goes to cover fraudulent claims. So that's, for example, when someone makes it look like their car got hit, but really they drove into their own garage. And then they file it as an insurance claim. And if someone's not looking into that, all the insurance companies have their own departments to investigate fraud as well. So what the Department of Insurance does is either complementary to that or sometimes redundant of that. So we do want to cut down on fraud. I will also say, though, that if it is 30 cents in North Carolina compared to the nationwide average, then what is Mike Causey doing? Why is it so high here? And if it's not 30 cents, why is he lying about that? And I have had many, sometimes anonymous calls from people who tell me there is some widespread systemic fraud going on that the Department of Insurance has been made aware of under Mike Causey, and he's not doing anything about it. So I think he tends to go after what I like to refer to as kind of the small potatoes cases. So he gets a headline in the local paper. So the funny one that I read, well, it's not funny. Fraud is bad. But this woman was caught not disclosing the full truth on her application for pet insurance and was brought up on felony charges for that. And he was very proud of that because it got him the headline of, Mike Causey investigates fraudulent. And again, that's wrong. She shouldn't have done that. But is that really top priority? I don't know. I don't know that it is. So yeah. But I would take it seriously. And I want to look at some of the more widespread, more systemic fraud that might be costing us a whole lot more than a pet insurance plan that maybe shouldn't have covered what it did. I don't know about that. Any other questions? Yes, right here in front. Oh, sorry. I'll let you decide whoever gets the mic, that's who's.
Yeah, hi, good evening. One of my pet peeves about insurance, which
me your
is
pet
also
peeves about-
fraudulent, the title insurance. We pay a lot of money for title insurance and they hardly ever pay out a claim.
Have you had to file a claim and they denied it?
No, no, I
Okay.
don't think anybody files a claim. You know,
I've talked to some attorney,
There are some-
I never practiced real estate law, but I've talked to some attorneys in North Carolina who think, well, I've talked to people on both sides. One say we should get rid of it because it's not very necessary. Everyone's required to pay it. And then there's never any claims. So it's sort of a make work job, kind of like that job Mike Cosby's friend had. But then on the other side, they said, attorneys say we need to keep it because if there is a mistake in the title, the lawyers are going to get sued for malpractice, and that's not our job to check the title. So I don't know what the answer is on that. I think our rates are decent here in North Carolina, yes or no? Compared to other states? Yeah. They make those types of insurance, this commissioner of insurance does not set the maximum rate. So you regulate all insurance companies that want to do business in the state of North Carolina to make sure they have enough money in reserves to pay claims, that they're not going to go bankrupt and take people's premiums for 6 months and then disappear, et cetera. So that would be part of that. Also to make sure that they are paying claims fairly so that they're not, there are some companies that are worse than others in how they treat their policyholders. But as far as setting maximum rates, that's on the types of insurance that you're more required to have. Well, title insurance you're required to have. I don't know. I don't know if the rates are higher than in other states or not, but I can look into it.
You have to have it if you pay cash.
Mhm. Yeah, technically you don't have to have homeowners insurance in that case either, but you probably ought to have that, right? Yeah.
Hey,
Hello.
I was curious about the Department of Insurance,
Mhm.
about, I guess, then the person who is the head of the Department of Insurance that you're running for, that person then is the boss of all those people in the Department of Insurance.
Right,
And,
right.
and about how large a department is that? How many employees roughly?
It's about 400 to 500 people. They have some vacancies now. Morale's pretty low from what I understand. Several of the people who work there don't want to say it out loud that they're very frustrated. But I have received emails from people who say, I still work at the Department of Insurance. I was there under Wayne Goodwin, and boy, what a difference it is now. They feel like their hands are tied a lot of the times. Like some of these are like career civil servant professionals who want to do right by the people of North Carolina. And they feel like their hands are being tied and they're frustrated. They're desperate for some new leadership. So I look forward to setting a new North Star, which is let's do what's right for the people of North Carolina and to have some ethical leadership that wants to take the Department of Insurance in that direction.
Hi, Natasha. I was just curious what you would do in the job that's a little bit different than Mike. How go about regulating rates, for example?
Well, I mean,
I
the
mean, how do
main
you
thing
go
is
about
have the
setting
public
it?
hearing. Because I can't tell you now what the rate should or shouldn't be. Nobody knows because the data has not been presented. So for example, we don't know how much money, we know about how many policies are subject to consent to rate in North Carolina. So we know they're making the max and then we know they're making some amount more than that, but we don't know what those numbers are. So we got to have transparency. That's how you do it. And there are a lot of experts at the Department of Insurance, and Wayne Goodwin said he would sometimes hire some experts from out of state to do some comparison analysis and present testimony. And these hearings can take 3 to 4 weeks. There's a lot of data on a big rate hike like homeowners, a statewide homeowners rate increase. And so you do the work, you hold the hearing. I'm a former litigation attorney. I'm very comfortable in a hearing setting. I'm eager to do the cross-examination and make sure we ask all the right questions.
This might be a dumb question, so forgive me.
Sure.
I think of insurance as something you have to have for when things go wrong.
Right.
What role does the Commissioner of Insurance play in the preventive strategies of keeping people from not running red lights and hurting their neighbors and
Right.
forgetting to re-roof their house so it doesn't leak and that sort of thing?
I love that you brought up roofs. So I was out at the coast 2 weekends ago and got to go up on top of the house, that a habitat house that was being built with what they call a fortified roof. Have you heard about this program? So on the coast, there is an incentive program for people to install not just a regular roof, which blows off when the hurricane or even close to hurricane winds come, but a fortified roof. And all the studies show that these roofs will hold in pretty strong winds. And when they do, the amount of claims after a hurricane goes way down. Because if your roof stays on, the water's not getting in. You may have a broken window or a dented car, but those are small compared to if the roof flies off and the rain comes through. So that is an example of a program we need to expand because, I mean, let's talk for a minute about climate change. First of all, it's real and it is happening, right? It is not a hoax by liberal media. It's real. And when there are bigger storms, stronger storms, more frequent storms, there's more damage, more claims to insurance, rates go up, right? And companies, insurance companies, one of the things that they're looking for in deciding where to write policies is how well is the state dealing with the realities of climate change? Are we mitigating? Are we building resilient homes or not? And if you're not, like Florida, they don't want to do business there. And they also need what's called reinsurance. So insurance companies buy insurance, and that's a global market. And reinsurance companies don't like to offer insurance on insurance companies that are writing policies in states that aren't dealing well with climate change. And by the way, in North Carolina, it's not just the coast that is seeing the impacts of climate change. We have a really long coastline compared to most states. So we do have a high likelihood of suffering damage as the storm levels, sea levels rise and the storms get stronger. We also have a huge low-lying area of our state that is more and more experiencing chronic flooding, even without a hurricane, just a regular rainfall. And then in the mountains, we're having mudslides on a much more frequent basis. So it's across the whole state. And we need to, if you go to my website, natashamarcus.com, you'll see one of my areas of priority. I've taken the time to write it down because I think you, the voters, should be entitled to read what I stand for. And I'm putting it in writing, not just talking to you about it. And one of them is about our need to be ready for these things. So there are resiliency programs like the fortified roof program we need to do. I'm worried about the US Congress getting rid of the national flood insurance policy because more and more North Carolinians are relying on that as the only way to get flood insurance. And that's what you need if you're hit with hurricane winds or a mudslide. I think I'm going on too long. I feel like there was something else I was going to say about preparing and being ready. Oh, the building code. So here's an example of something you may not think about. So in the Senate, I told you I serve on the Commerce and Insurance Committee. And one of my biggest fights this past 2 years now is a bill that the Homeowners Association was pushing. They are a huge lobby that funds a lot of Republican campaigns in the General Assembly. They pushed through this bill that blocked our state's building code council from modernizing our building codes. They have not been updated since the 90s. So today in 2024, brand new homes that are built in North Carolina are not fuel efficient. They are not ready to withstand stronger and more frequent storms. They are built to standards that were updated in 1990 something, 94, I think it was. And so the Building Code Council was about to modernize our building code, saying, hey, we got to be ready. This is not okay. less fuel efficient homes create more climate, right? I mean, it's all related. You see what I'm saying? And so I was so mad. I thought, what are you doing? Why would we block? Why do we not want modern building codes? And it's because the Home Builders Association wants to build the house as cheaply as possible. That's all they care about. And they went in with scare tactics saying it's going to cost homeowners more money to build a house. Well, okay, it's going to cost a little more maybe on the upfront end, but you're going to save money over the years, and it's better for the climate. So that's an example of where we need advocacy. Some of that is legislation. So the Commissioner of Insurance cannot legislate. It's an executive branch, but there's certainly an opportunity, and I would say an obligation, to speak out about these kinds of things. We have time for a couple more. I don't know what time it is.
I do.
Wow,
There's
okay.
a question on the Zoom. Hey,
Ooh,
Bert Bowie.
Zoom people.
Yeah. Any comments on the performance of the State Fire Marshal Department?
Okay, that's a tricky question. So it sounds like someone follows this sexy race very closely. Okay, so just to bring everyone up to date. So it's asking about the Office of State Fire Marshal. So historically, the State Fire Marshal is a title that is given to whoever's elected Commissioner of Insurance. So you're both Commissioner of Insurance elected by the people and also the State Fire Marshal. And the reason the two are connected is because if you know enough about how firefighting used to work, if you paid in, it used to be if you paid your dues to the fire department, then they would come put your house out if it caught fire. And if you didn't pay, they wouldn't. So it was a form of insurance. Now, of course, it's a different system, thank goodness. But there's always been this connection, and also based your homeowner's insurance rate is also related to how ready and modernized your closest fire department is to how quickly can they get there if something were to happen. So it used to always be the same role with oversight. You didn't actually, the Commissioner of Insurance isn't a fighter or a fire marshal, but oversees that. Okay, so this year, for the first year ever in the history of our state, Mike Causey was stripped of that title. And instead, the legislature, in its wisdom, decided to allow professional firefighters who were already really running it anyway to serve as the state fire marshal. And that was due to some criticism of Mike Causey that we could talk a long time about, but it boils down to, one, he did not stand up for firefighters when they wanted coverage for cancer, when firefighters get cancer at a much higher rate because of the things that they're exposed to on the job. And they don't want to have to be forced to prove and jump through hoops that it was caused by occupational exposure. They just want coverage for cancer if they get cancer. I supported that bill. I voted for that bill. It's one of the reasons they've endorsed me in this race. Mike Causey did not fight for that. And that was one of the reasons, plus all this cronyism that I told you about, that the legislature saw that his favorite part of the job, he doesn't do the insurance half very well, but his favorite part of the job is to go visit fire departments, take a picture next to the big red shiny truck, and he holds one of those oversized checks that is not even money that the commissioner's office is giving out. It's grant money through the state, but he loves to show up and take the picture and make it look like he's helping out the fire department. So I think the General Assembly decided enough with that. That's ridiculous. Let's put someone who knows fire in place. And so they're having professional firefighters run the state fire marshal's office. Now it's still technically under Department of Insurance, but that change makes sense to me. I know the firefighters trust their own professional firefighters to do the job. So I agree with that change. I would not fight that change. I think that makes sense to me. I think that answers the question. Okay. Is there one more? Are we wrapping up? We're wrapping up.
So we see no more hands. So I just want to say, I told you so.
Thank you.
So on this table are the envelopes. There's some other kinds of voter information and the forum that's coming and various things.
Thank you
So-
for being Democrats. Thank you for electing people up and down this ballot. I'm so proud to be on this slate with, these are fantastic candidates. You know, you heard some of them speak, but these are some of my colleagues in the General Assembly. I know them personally. Allison Riggs, I myself hosted a fundraiser for Allison Riggs on the Supreme Court because she's just so fantastic. So thank you for all you're doing, all you're going to do. I hope you'll make a small donation. That'll boost my spirits, and Josh will be so happy. And we'll be able to run more ads and beat Mike Causey. So thank you.